As was the case with the previous episode 3, the theory up for debunking today begins in the late fall of 1945 at the Nazi Waffenfabrik der Riese facility. Dr. Edward Richtofen traps his superior and the, at the time, head of Group 935, Dr. Ludwig Maxis, his daughter Samantha, and her accidentally zombified pet dog Fluffy in the matter transference device, better known in the zombies community as the teleporter. Now, when Richtofen punches the big red button and the three are teleported away, we know for sure that Samantha ends up on the moon, where she surprises the lead scientists, Dr. Groff and Dr. Schuster, who were tasked with figuring out the MPD. And in her disoriented panic, she runs into the MPD and the shield slams shut. Now, Fluffy, as far as we know, re-entered the ether, from which she only returns on occasion in a ball of lightning when commanded by the controller of the MPD, a position which, in this case, Samantha would have filled. However, Maxis, his final destination, or his destination in this case, is more open to debate. This theory that we'll be discussing today suggests that perhaps he found himself at none other than the buried Western town. During my research, I found that this theory can actually be attributed to two individuals, both of them members of Call of Duty Zombies forums, including Mystery Machine X himself, as well as a good pal of mine and longtime member of the site, Fated Titan. So I want to go ahead and acknowledge both of those gentlemen and thank them both for allowing me to mention them on the show, since, as is my policy, I don't credit a theory to an individual unless they give their consent, as since I am debunking, I never want to give anyone the impression that I am here to malign any theorist. That being said, let's launch right into the details of this theory and get straight to work. The basis for this theory can be broken down into three different parts. The first part comes from Moon, a vague quote from a radio in which Dr. Maxis refers to having been trapped in what he describes as that wretched tunnel. The second is based on the TV transmissions from Transit that describe his Plan B, involving the global polarization devices, as opposed to Plan A, nuke the entire planet from the moon. And the third simply relies on the various technologies that can be found scattered throughout the buried map. The first and most influential is Maxis' reference to having been in a tunnel of some kind.
Where are we? And how did you get me out of that wretched tunnel? That is important right now.
Well, there are definitely two tunnels in Moon, we know that for sure. One in NaBrZHunter, one in der Riese, one in Call of the Dead, and two in Shangri-La. So that gives us plenty of options to choose from at the time of the release of Moon. You know, far before Buried even came out. Buried was the fourth DLC of Black Ops 2. So let's walk through the possibilities one by one. First, NaBrZHunter, which so far has no connection to the storyline or characters that we're familiar with, though maybe someday that'll change. Maybe. I mean, who knows? Second, der Riese. Der Riese's tunnel was, well, at der Riese, and therefore, as the head of the facility, you'd think that Maxis was no doubt well aware of its existence and, fully capable of escaping himself. So, scratch another. Call of the Dead had one tunnel, but it was literally an ice slide that no one could get stuck in if they tried. Not to mention it was located at the Group 935 Siberia base, so again, not a likely candidate. The moon tunnels were kind of on the moon, so you'd think they probably wouldn't need to teleport him to Griffin Station from Griffin Station's own tunnels. Buried, on the other hand, not only did it not appear in the game until Black Ops 2, but really wasn't a tunnel, but more of a cavern. Now, maybe you caught it, but we skipped one option. Shangri-La. What a fantastic specimen of a tunnel. Really. Now, not only that, but it seems to have a very unique and special connection to Moon somehow. For instance, Richtofen's first attempt at teleportation of a human, namely himself, in which he first arrived in the MPD room on the moon, and then found himself just suddenly transported to Shangri-La.
We're standing in a circular cave, surrounded by some kind of machinery. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. There's a pyramid structure in the center of the room. Was is los? Do you hear that? It sounds like My God! What happened? I seem to be in some kind of jungle. I can't be certain of where I am.
Now, the second part of this theory pertains to Dr. Max's Plan B, which refers to the Black Ops 2 quest to power the global polarization devices. The following transmission from Transit gives us a little more detail.
What has occurred cannot be undone. However, I realize the calculations were made in haste and could potentially threaten the entire globe. That was not the intent. I considered a possible Plan B should this occur, but this plan would consist of creating global polarization devices.
Mystery Machine X theory suggests that Dr. Maxis actually prepared Plan B before Dr. Groff and Dr. Schuster pinpointed his location and teleported him to Griffin Station and the Moon in a bid to rid the MPD of Samantha's intruding presence.
Now, scan for target.
Yes, Doctor.
Target located.
Bring him here. Immediately.
Greetings, Dr. Maxis.
Schuster, I should have known. Where is that rat Edvard? Where are we? And how did you get me out of that wretched... None of that is important right now. Allow me to fill you in.
Now, this would assume that not only was Maxis aware of the MPD's existence before Richtofen betrayed him, but also of its significance, as well as Richtofen's very top secret plan to take control of it. So, based on this, it would not have been possible for Maxis to have prepared any of these plans during his time in the tunnel. In fact, Plan A and Plan B were probably not, thought up entirely until the time that Richtofen and his three goons arrived at Griffin Station to begin the cryogenic slumber party Easter egg. And lastly, what about the evidence of Dr. Maxis at Buried versus Maxis at Shangri-La? Well, recently I've gone back again and scoured the quotes from Maxis, Richtofen, and the new four characters from Transit to Buried, and have found nothing that would imply that Maxis has ever been to the buried western town. On the other hand, when playing Shangri-La as Dr. Richtofen, when you receive the 3179 JGB 215, better known as the Shrink Ray or Baby Maker from the box, Richtofen says the following.
I know Maxis was working on such a device, but I had no idea he was successful.
Now, despite the lack of solid proof, the technology, especially the perk machines at Buried, are often posed as evidence of Maxis having been there at some point. However, not only are the perk machines also at Shangri-La, which kind of cancels out that argument, but as of Black Ops 3, we now know that Dr. Monty is the true entrepreneur behind said perks, and thus, they are not really hard and fast evidence of Maxis or Richtofen having been anywhere that they can be found. It's also significant to note, as actually MMX himself points out in his video, that the portraits of the well-dressed gentlemen that are scattered around the map that is Buried are those of the 19th century physicist Michael Faraday, who is famous for his discoveries in electromagnetism. Therefore, neither the time bomb nor the paralyzer are really evidence of Dr. Maxis ever having set foot there. And now is a good time to point out that the canon evidence strongly indicates that the town that we know as Buried was not actually buried underground, much less in the location in Africa that we know it to be, at the time of Maxis being trapped in the tunnel at all. In fact, that wouldn't happen, it wouldn't become Buried until after Richtofen and the three goons returned to the Moon to oust Samantha from the MPD in the cryogenic slumber party Easter egg. But, that's a whole nother video. That was, in fact, the previous episode, episode 3, which I'll link here on screen for your convenience. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend you do so, and that should hopefully clear the waters for you some. So that's all for today. I'm running out of time. You may be running out of time, and seeing as how we can't go back in time, at least not without kickback, Actually, I do hear that theory a lot, that you can go back in time. That's a video unto itself as well. So until next time, thanks so much for watching. As always, I appreciate it. And as you hear here and everywhere else, a like, a subscription, or a comment would help a lot. It lets me know that you appreciate what I'm doing and helps me to keep up with it. At any rate, I'll stop there, and thanks again for watching. This has been NaBrZHunter, signing off.